Twilight Stories After Dark, stories told after dark. Some are true and some are not. You decide. Hopefully, you've been listening and you've been watching. But if not, you can always catch past stories of Twilight Stories After Dark on Instagram, Facebook, or my YouTube page. Tonight's story is the second part of the near death experience. So grab your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, your cup of hot chocolate, your glass of wine, whiskey, cognac, whatever it is that makes you want to sit back, relax, and listen. The second part of near death experience. He made lots of changes to it, altering its appearance on the inside and out, making it more appealing and modern, suitable for his growing family. Earl and Patricia pretty much kept to themselves, minded their business, and once in a while offered a wave or two to their neighbors. Next door to them on the right side was a husband and wife who most times traveled the globe. They were barely there. To the left of them, an older couple, and more of the same throughout this small but relatively quiet community. Across the street from Earl and Patricia was a single mom, raising two boys, who had lived there a year or two before Patricia and Earl moved in. One of the sons looked about 12, was very outgoing, polite, and extremely cheerful whenever Patricia or Earl noticed him. He had a very pleasant disposition. The other, assuming he was the oldest, looked about 15 or 16. He was more aloof, much quieter, and kept to himself. He always wore this gray, hooded sweatshirt, covering his head and never looking up or straight forward into a person's eyes. The mom, well, she was a bit of both. Some days she was as cheerful as a lark, carefree and unaware of grimmer realities, pleasant as ever while planting flowers outside in their backyard, and then other days she was very cold and standoffish. Either way, they appeared harmless, as most in the neighborhood did. One late morning, when Patricia had returned home after dropping her children off at school and daycare and running a few errands, she noticed the younger son standing outside of his house. However, he didn't notice her. His vibrant demeanor seemed off that morning. Yet, as soon as he noticed Patricia, he quickly perked up, waved, and scurried out of sight. Patricia found it a bit odd, but shook it off and grabbed her groceries from the trunk, went inside, and readied herself for her morning appointment. 2 or 3 months had gone by, and both she and Earl noticed they hadn't seen the younger son outside and around the house. "Do you think he's okay?" asked Patricia. "Why would you ask that? Is that the therapist in you working overtime?" replied Earl. "No, it's not, Earl, or maybe it is. I just have this feeling everything feels off these past few months. The mother barely comes outside, and the older son, well, he just seems lonely. And where's the younger son? I used to at least see him outside in the back, but now," Earl quickly interrupts, "well, you know kids these days. Maybe they're doing their own thing over there, probably immersed in their computers or playing video games. Honestly, it's none of our business. Please, don't get involved, Patricia." But was it not their business? In a community, are we not, or should we need to be concerned about our neighbors? At least, that's how Patricia felt. And before long, she would make it her business to venture over to her neighbor's house to check in on them. After a week or two of deliberating whether or not she should just mind her business, the therapist in her would not. But she had to have an excuse as to why she'd show up at their doorstep. So what better way than to bake up a batch of her famous cookies? Back in New York, everyone raved about her chocolate chip cookies. Couldn't get enough of them. As they baked, she stood by her window, peeking through the curtains. There was no movement across the street. Twilight Stories After Dark. Join us on Saturday for part 3 of the near death experience.